This is another Poet at War General Report. And here's your General, Joshua David Ling.
What's good, everybody? Good to see you again. Yes, I had to shave the beard. I know, ridiculous. But, yeah, it was just getting too matted, and usually once a year or once every 2 years, I have to, just because it needs to be reset. It's just that thick, that coarse. So, not that it itches, it just becomes a whole thing. Anyway, what's up? It's good to see you all. Good to be back on the General's Report once again. And this week we're talking about the Song of Albion, the Wingfeather Saga by Andrew Peterson. There is an animated TV show coming out soon from Angel Studios. I'm really excited about that. They got some really top-notch voice talent, including Jodie Benson. So if you haven't heard of this fantasy series, you will very soon. They are doing a few things slightly different with the story, but it's very much driven by the original artist, Andrew Peterson, and people that he really actually trusts, people who love the story in their very core. So I'm very excited about that. But I was gifted the Wingfeather Saga. My father started to become a fan of Andrew Peterson, who was also a singer-songwriter, by the way. Around the time someone asked at one of our DJ jobs for the song Dancing in the Minefields as their first dance, their first dance for their wedding. And he got the song, and then he started looking into him, realized he was a Christian artist, and he hadn't heard of him, and started looking into him a little bit more and finding he really liked a lot of his music, especially his lyrics, very, very deep lyrics. And so with that, he found out later that, much later, probably several years later, that he had written a fantasy series and that people thought it was a lot like Narnia, or Lord of the Rings, or Andrew describes it as The Princess Bride meets Lord of the Rings. And it definitely has its own sense of humor. I got the first book right here. I decided to actually pull the book, On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. This is one of the first edition, I think, printings. It might not be first edition, but it's earlier printings. You'll find it looks a little bit different, but this is a paperback. And I was very, very pleased when I read it. This was a little bit later in my life. I think my late teens, early 20s, probably my early 20s, to be honest with you. And I never really fell out of love with Narnia or Rings or Albion, and so this was just an icing on the cake kind of book. I've read some other fantasy, and I enjoy them, but these 4 series that I've talked about, Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings, Song of Albion, and the Wingfeather Saga, are just life-changing books. Like, they really, really are. And I cannot say enough good things about this series. I think I'll give you a taste of their goofiness. I already read a small part of this. No. I'm gonna let you look it up. It is so wonderful. It has this sense of humor all throughout, and yet it always takes itself seriously. There's toothy cows in it, for example. In other words, these giant cows that have razor sharp vampire teeth. Yeah, this gives you an idea of what you're in for. But it is such a wonderful series, and it will make you cry, and it will make you laugh, and it will make you joy. You can hear my children in there more than likely. If you can't, that's okay. But yeah, this was really a gift for me. I didn't grow up on it, but it was a gift. And it was one of the greatest and last gifts my father gave me. It's still many years before he passed away, and we were able to read them and talk about them and everything. I think he read 1 or 2 books first, and then I started reading them. So this is really the first series that we were actually reading simultaneously together, which I thought was really cool. I have a lot of memories of my siblings also reading through it and enjoying it, and talking about it with them after they got to certain parts. And it was really a different experience from, growing up with a story, like I've talked about many times with the Chronicles of Narnia. each of these 4 books was a different experience, but they were all very special in their own right. And I think the thing that, now that I'm kind of closing out these 4, I've done a show on each of these 4. Narnia taught me obedience. It taught me obedience even when, and what it meant, even beyond just, ritualistic obedience. It taught me the deeper meaning of obeying one's parents, obeying one's God, obeying the things that are right, regardless of, what comes. Then Lord of the Rings taught me about true diversity. It taught me about perseverance more than anything else. True, honest perseverance beyond what anyone thought anyone could do. Then, the Song of Albion taught me about kingship and headship and fealty to a lord, which is similar to obedience, but there's a little bit more. It was more like how you should rule in the world as a Christian, as someone who believes in truth and right. And then Wingfeather taught me about forgiveness. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on that, but there is some forgiveness in this story that is absolutely, unbelievably, gut-wrenchingly heartbreaking. And when I say heartbreaking, I kind of more mean the opposite of that, but there's no real good for heart building, heart stitching. You know what I'm saying. But yeah, this book series, and that's the other thing that really means something to me. There's a song in the 3rd book called "My Love Has Gone Across the Sea." Those who know. The song is insanely sad and amazing in context, and happy, bittersweet. But it was actually my wife and I's first dance. Going back to another first dance there. Now, some people might go, why would you have a bittersweet song as your first dance? Well, it tells of 2 lovers that have gone across the sea. One went across the sea to find a country far and fair, and the other one came after him to try and find him and save him because she didn't know what happened to him. And she was going to follow him no matter what. Well, when we were dating, Casey and I, my wife, we were living in Augusta and Atlanta. She was in Augusta, I was in Atlanta. That's 3 hours apart for those who don't know. I was not quite Atlanta. It was a little north, but yeah. So the first title of the first book, On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. We referred to the whole section where there's really nothing in between, the big rural area where there was nothing in between Augusta and Atlanta, as the Dark Sea of Darkness. And so when we said my love has gone across the sea, we were praising each other for our fealty to one another to make the long distance relationship work and figure it out over time and conquer the dragons that we needed to. And it's a 6/8. I think it might be 3/4, but it's 6/8. I'm pretty sure. Waltzy kind of a thing. And we had our first dance to that song. I'm going to have to go into our wedding in more detail another time. It was an very interesting and unique wedding. Let's just put it that way. And I need to put that down on my general's report ideas right after I finish this. But yeah, that's the Wingfeather Saga, and I cannot recommend it enough. And if you don't read the book, the show will be coming out later this year for the first season, and I am thoroughly excited for it. Thank you all for listening. Remember, do not turn to the right or to the left. Be your family's bard and follow God, and he will be with you wherever you go. And we'll see you next time on the General's Report.